The bus rattled down the narrow street of Oakwood, the afternoon sun slanting through its grimy windows. It was a regular Tuesday, and the route was usually filled with students, workers, and elderly people heading home after a long day. Inside the bus, conversations murmured in patches, headphones hummed, and the faint odor of gasoline lingered. Among the passengers was Marcus Daniels, a quiet 17-year-old black teenager with a worn-out backpack slung across his shoulder. He had just finished his shift at the local library, where he worked part-time to help his mother pay the bills. Marcus loved books, and though the job didn't pay much, it gave him access to a world beyond Oakwood, a world of history, dreams, and possibilities. Marcus stepped onto the bus, scanning for an empty seat. His eyes settled on one halfway down, near the window. Just as he moved toward it, he realized a boy, about his age, was sprawled across both the seat and the aisle, deliberately blocking the space with his legs. The boy was Ethan Miller, a well-known face at Oakwood High. His reputation wasn't exactly flattering. Ethan had a mean streak, often making crude jokes about race, weight, or anything else that would get a laugh from his group of friends. He was the kind of person who craved attention, and if he could get it by belittling others, he didn't hesitate. Marcus approached politely. "Hey, could you move your bag so I can sit down?" Ethan didn't budge. He glanced up, smirked, and said loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "Why don't you find another seat? This one's not for people like you." The words hung heavy in the air. A few passengers looked up sharply, others looked away, not wanting to get involved. Marcus froze, his throat tightening. He had heard comments like this before, but hearing it in front of strangers made his face flush with a mixture of anger and humiliation. "I just want to sit," Marcus said evenly, trying to keep his voice calm. Ethan leaned back smugly, folding his arms. "Too bad. Go stand in the back. That's where your kind belongs." The cruelty was deliberate, designed to sting. A hush fell over that side of the bus. An elderly woman gasped softly. A young mother pulled her child closer, whispering something under her breath. Marcus gripped his backpack strap tighter. His heart pounded, but he refused to retreat. He had promised himself long ago that he wouldn't let people like Ethan dictate his place in the world. Before Marcus could speak again, the bus driver's voice boomed from the front. "What's going on back there?" All eyes turned to Ethan. He shrugged innocently. "Nothing. Just saving a seat." But the driver wasn't convinced. He pulled the bus to a slow stop at the next red light, twisted halfway around, and locked eyes with Ethan. "Young man, move your bag and let him sit. Now." Ethan sneered, clearly enjoying the attention. "Why should I? It's a free country." A ripple of disapproval moved through the passengers. One middle-aged man spoke up. "Kid, just let him sit. Don't make this ugly." Marcus stood silently, his jaw clenched. He didn't want a fight, but he wasn't about to back down either. He kept his gaze steady on Ethan, waiting. Ethan, feeling cornered, finally shoved his bag off the seat with exaggerated annoyance. "Fine, sit if you're so desperate." Marcus slid into the seat, his hands shaking slightly. He pulled out a book from his backpack, trying to distract himself. But his mind was racing. He could feel Ethan's glare burning beside him, hear the faint snickers of a couple of teenagers who thought Ethan's cruelty was amusing. Inside, Marcus felt two conflicting emotions battling, humiliation and pride. Humiliation for being treated that way, and pride for not backing down. He knew this wouldn't be the end of it. Ethan didn't let things go that easily. The bus rumbled on, but the atmosphere had shifted. Everyone sensed it. What Marcus didn't know was that this single confrontation would spiral into something far bigger than a bus ride home. Ethan was about to learn a lesson that would shake him to his core, and Marcus would discover that standing up for himself would set into motion events that would change both their lives forever. The ride continued in silence, but the air was thick with tension. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly bothered that his little stunt hadn't ended the way he expected. He wasn't used to people like Marcus standing their ground. Normally, his comments would either spark laughter from friends or force his target to back away in shame. But Marcus, he just sat there, spine straight, flipping through the pages of his book as if Ethan's words carried no weight at all. That calm defiance unsettled Ethan more than he cared to admit. "Think you're better than me, huh?" Ethan muttered under his breath. Marcus didn't look up. "No, I just know I'm not less than you." The words, simple as they were, struck Ethan harder than he expected. His cheeks burned. He wanted to lash out again, to throw another insult, but something about Marcus's steady composure made him hesitate. It was easier to mock someone who crumbled, but Marcus wasn't crumbling. As the bus jolted to another stop, more passengers boarded. A teacher from Oakwood High, Mrs. Reynolds, stepped on and immediately spotted Marcus and Ethan sitting together. She raised an eyebrow. "Well, this is a surprise," she said, taking a nearby seat. She knew both boys, Marcus as the quiet, diligent student who often stayed late in the library, and Ethan as the troublemaker constantly sent to detention. Ethan forced a smirk. "Yeah, surprise of the century." Mrs. Reynolds studied him for a moment, sensing the tension. "I hope you're both behaving," she said firmly before turning away. But Ethan felt cornered. His attempt to humiliate Marcus had backfired. Instead of gaining admiration, he had drawn the disapproval of the bus driver, the passengers, and now a teacher. His pride itched like an open wound. By the time the bus reached the school's main stop, a crowd of students had gathered near the front to get off. Ethan seized the chance to restore his bruised ego. As Marcus stood up, Ethan muttered loudly enough for others to hear. "Careful with your bag. Wouldn't want anyone to think you're stealing something." A few gasps erupted from nearby students. Marcus froze, his fists clenching at his sides. The sting of the accusation, the ugly stereotype, hit him like a slap. Before Marcus could respond, Mrs. Reynolds stood abruptly. Her voice rang out sharp and commanding. "Ethan Miller, that is enough." The bus went quiet. Ethan blinked, suddenly caught in the spotlight of adult authority. "You will apologize to Marcus right now, Mrs. Reynolds ordered. Ethan scoffed. "Why should I? It was just a joke. A cruel one. And not the first time you've spoken like this. I've warned you before, Ethan. If you continue, I'll make sure the principal hears about it." The passengers murmured their approval. Marcus stood quietly, his eyes fixed on Ethan, not pleading but unyielding. For the first time, Ethan felt something unfamiliar, a crack in the shield of arrogance he wore so easily. But his pride wouldn't let him back down. Instead, he rolled his eyes and muttered, "Whatever." The bus pulled up to the stop, and Marcus stepped off, walking with steady strides toward the sidewalk. Ethan followed, but his chest felt heavier than it had when he boarded. That night, Ethan replayed the events in his mind. His friends, who had heard about the incident, laughed and clapped him on the back, saying things like, "Classic Ethan." And, "Man, you never miss." But their laughter felt hollow to him. For the first time, he didn't enjoy the attention. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw Marcus, standing tall, refusing to flinch, refusing to crumble. And worse, he heard Mrs. Reynolds's sharp words echoing, "Cruel. Enough. Apologize." Something about it gnawed at him. Why did Marcus's calm dignity bother him more than all the detentions and lectures he had received in the past? The next morning, at school, Ethan noticed something unusual. Normally, he commanded the center of his group's attention, but now whispers followed him down the hall. Word had spread. People weren't impressed by his joke. Some students even avoided eye contact. At lunch, Ethan sat with his usual group, but the energy was different. Two girls from his history class walked past, one of them muttering, "Disgusting." His friends chuckled awkwardly, but Ethan felt his stomach twist. For the first time, Ethan began to sense what Marcus must feel all the time, judged, sized up, labeled. And the irony wasn't lost on him. What he didn't know yet was that his actions had set something in motion that would soon turn his entire reputation upside down. Ethan was about to face consequences that no smug joke could shield him from. The next week at Oakwood High began like any other, students streaming into classrooms, teachers juggling assignments, and the usual buzz of chatter in the hallways. But for Ethan, things weren't the same. His reputation had shifted. The incident on the bus had spread through the school like wildfire, and while some of his closest friends still laughed at his boldness, most of his peers had quietly distanced themselves. He noticed it in the little things, the way teachers looked at him more critically, how classmates no longer invited him into group projects, and how the cafeteria line seemed to grow colder whenever he walked past. Even those who used to cheer at his jokes now avoided his gaze. At first, Ethan brushed it off. He told himself he didn't care. But when his basketball coach pulled him aside after practice and said, "You need to fix this, Ethan. This school doesn't tolerate that kind of behavior," the weight of his actions finally began to sink in. 2 days later, the principal called him into the office. Sitting there with folded arms was Mrs. Reynolds, and next to her, Marcus. Ethan's stomach churned. "Ethan, the principal began, we've received multiple reports about your behavior on the bus. Racism has no place in this school. We're giving you a chance to reflect and make amends, but let me be clear, if this continues, there will be serious consequences. Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He glanced at Marcus, who sat calmly, his hands folded in his lap. There was no smugness in Marcus's eyes, no desire for revenge. Just quiet strength. The principal leaned forward. You owe Marcus an apology. Ethan's throat went dry. He wanted to argue, to say it was just a joke, but deep down, he knew he'd crossed a line. Still, the words stuck. His pride was like a chain around his tongue. Finally, with a strained voice, he muttered, I'm sorry. The principal frowned. That didn't sound sincere. Mrs. Reynolds added, Ethan, this isn't about saving face. This is about acknowledging that you hurt someone, and it was wrong. For the first time, Ethan looked Marcus in the eye. And what he saw wasn't anger, it was patience. That broke something inside him. He exhaled sharply, his shoulders slumping. I'm really sorry, Marcus, he said, this time with more weight. I shouldn't have said what I did. It was cruel, and it wasn't right. Marcus nodded slowly. I accept your apology. But words mean less than actions. Change how you treat people, that's what matters. The principal nodded approvingly. Well said, Marcus. Over the following weeks, Ethan found himself wrestling with his identity. For years, he had thrived on cruelty, on being the loudest voice in the room. But now, whenever he opened his mouth to make a joke at someone else's expense, guilt twisted in his chest. It was Marcus's calm words that haunted him, change how you treat people. One day after school, Ethan saw Marcus struggling with a heavy box of books outside the library. For a moment, he hesitated. His old self would have laughed and walked away. But something made him step forward. Need a hand? Ethan asked awkwardly. Marcus looked surprised but nodded. Together, they carried the box inside. It wasn't much, but it was a start. From then on, Ethan made small efforts. He caught himself when cruel words almost slipped out. He apologized when he went too far. He even started sitting quietly in class instead of disrupting. The change wasn't immediate, and many people still doubted him, but little by little, he felt the weight of his guilt lift. Months later, Oakwood High held a community assembly about respect and equality. To Ethan's shock, the principal invited both him and Marcus to speak. Standing nervously on stage, Ethan looked out at the sea of students. For the first time, he didn't want to make them laugh. He wanted to make them understand. I used to think it was funny to make jokes at other people's expense, Ethan began. But I hurt people. I hurt Marcus. And I learned the hard way that what you say can follow you forever. I'm trying to be better. And I'm thankful Marcus showed me that strength doesn't come from putting people down, it comes from lifting them up. Applause filled the auditorium. Marcus stepped up next, speaking about dignity, respect, and resilience. The students listened intently, and for once, Ethan listened harder than anyone. That day, Ethan realized he had changed, not because he was forced to, but because Marcus had shown him a better way. He learned that cruelty might win laughter, but kindness earns respect. And from then on, Ethan never forgot the day he refused to move from a black passenger seat, and instantly began a journey of regret, redemption, and growth.